let's begin the session on the topic, When Earth Can't Keep You Down, by Sunita Williams in conversation with Manu S. Pillai.
Thank you, Coricode. This is astonishing. I'm not surprised that there's practically a sea of people here, but this is really quite overwhelming. Sunita, I'm sure you've seen this crowd several times over the last 3 or 4 days, but is it still a bit of a surprise each time this happens?
Totally surprised, totally humbled. I'm amazed all the people are here. What a nice way to spend a Sunday evening. So thank you so much for coming.
I'm going to begin this conversation. We've got over an hour. At some point, I think we might show videos that Sunita has brought with her. But I'm going to begin this conversation with a counterfactual, because anyone who doesn't even Wikipedia read on Sunita Williams, one of the things you read is that you spent many years in the US Navy. And I was thinking, as I was looking at the fact that Sunita Williams is now an icon, this is somebody everybody admires and looks at, have you ever thought of a life in case you'd never actually gone on to NASA, if you'd continued as a naval pilot, for many more years?
Yeah, I had such a wonderful career in the military. I would suggest it to everybody because it offers opportunities and a chance to go to different places and meet different people. It was such a wonderful career. Flying helicopters, I had the opportunity to go and do some humanitarian service, some relief operations when people were hit by a bad hurricane. Also, working with people all over the world in case there was anything anybody needed, as well as supplying our U.S. Navy ships with food and supplies. It was very rewarding. If I had never become an astronaut, I think I would have still been, in the Navy for a long period of time. I would have actually probably flown closer here in Europe and maybe even had a tour over with one of the exchange militaries, and maybe even had the opportunity to come and work here in India to foster our military relations. And I think it's really a great opportunity for anybody who's looking for something operational, fun, teamwork. I think it's really great, and you learn so much about people as well as machines and equipment, and I think it's a really awesome opportunity.
We'll go back to the beginning, and this is, given the fact that you come from a multiracial family, it's a multicultural family, in any way over the years has that proved to be a real asset? Does that in some ways help you in the career that you've had, the fact that you have a distinct background?
I give a lot of credit. I think my mentors were my parents. It's for all the parents out there, you are your kids' role models, you're your kids' mentors, and just keep that in the back of the mind whenever you're making a decision. And kids out there, whenever you're making a decision, when I was growing up, I always think to myself, what would my mother think if I did this or did that? Those are some of the guidelines that I live by. And my parents came from different backgrounds, and with those different backgrounds, they brought the culture into our house. And so we had an early appreciation, my brother, my sister, and myself, for multicultural relationships and people working together and understanding each other and listening to each other. Not to mention, when you grow up in a multicultural household, you get different types of food. Which is pretty nice. We had Indian food, we had Slovenian food, and I can't ask for a better childhood with parents who are willing to try all of that and understand all of that.
Were there other Indians in the town in which you grew up? Were there families with Indian heritage in the town that you grew up, or were you an anomaly growing up as the only person in your class with Indian heritage and Indian hair and things like that?
So when I was growing up, my brother, sister, and I were pretty much the Indian kids in the town who were going to school there. So people knew us, of course, for our long hairs, me and my sister. My brother was pretty tall from my mother's side. I have uncles who are like 6'4", 6'5", so my brother started growing really tall. And then from the Indian side, he had a nice beard by the time he was finishing high school. So people knew us, obviously, as the Indians in the school. They also knew us, though, as swimmers. We were competitive swimmers, and so we usually would have practice, some sort of practice before school and come to school with wet hair, which I think that is also really a great thing. If you're a student athlete out there, it teaches you a lot about time management and prioritization, and I really appreciate my parents having us do sports right from the very beginning to maintain our health. My father almost drowned when he was 2 years old, so that was the reason that we all learned how to swim. I think it was really awesome that he wasn't afraid of swimming, he said, okay, now I got to get my kids swimming right from the very beginning so I don't have to worry about that with my kids.
So your siblings and you in some ways fit the stereotype of Indians having hyper-accomplished kids. Were you like a class topper and like very good at everything you did in school?
You know, I think that's yes and no in my family. My brother is super smart, so he was a hard act to follow, as they say. You know, he went to school and was getting all A's. My sister is naturally smart, so she didn't even have to work very hard and got all A's. I came up 3 years later, and of course, for any school teachers out there, you know the family name, right? So you know the next kid coming up, and the next kid coming up has to live up to their brother and sister's standard. My parents really just expected us to do well in school. They provide us this, the idea, the vision that through education, through health, you will have opportunities. And so those are the basic foundations that they instilled in us. And so I think we knew that right away, that this is how we had to do it. I mean, I've often talked about my father being a lot braver than myself, having left his home country essentially just to start anew as a new doctor, not really knowing how that was all going to work out. And he just took the brave step and did that. So something really challenging. You know, I was in the military, so I was sort of guided along on my pathway. I had opportunities, I made decisions, I tried to do well at what I was doing. But when somebody does something that they have no idea where they're venturing into, I appreciate that. I know that's a huge challenge and it's very hard. So my parents just showed us the way, and I think that's a great way to have a relationship, parents and children.
In some conversation, I remember, speaking of your father, you said that it was on the ship when he first left India that he had cheese for the first time. And because of that, every time you have a cheese sandwich, you think of your father. But Sunita, you've just retired. It's been a very illustrious career. In hindsight, when the world now looks at you, if I look at a few interviews you did in the Indian media, for instance, there's this.
I'm going to come a little closer.
There's this talk, there's an echo. Yeah. There's this talk of.
We could be friends. Yeah, we're friends.
We are.
I can hear you a little bit better. It's okay.
Yeah. So. In the interviews that we see in the Indian media, etc., there's all of this talk about resilience and you're now an icon, etc., right? There's a linear narrative that's now being created that Sunita was born here, her father was an accomplished man, she did all these XYZ accomplished things, and that's how she became an icon. But everyone knows life isn't linear like that. There's always ups and downs. And you also said in one of your interviews that you are not an extraordinary person. You do not think you're an extraordinary person. You're just somebody who put their head down and got on with things. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because there are all these kids here who sometimes think that these things are beyond reach of normal people, whereas your whole point is that you are a normal person who just happened to have done something great. So did you ever feel imposter syndrome? Did you ever feel that you stumbled? Did you ever have self-doubt, essentially?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a great question. You know, I think there's many years of my life, not just as a kid, but later on in life as I was having a career, being a pilot. We talked a little bit about it this morning, being in some fields that were primarily male-dominated. I think you always have doubts about yourself, and maybe that's more of a female characteristic than a male characteristic, I'm not sure. But I feel like I've always had doubts about if I fit in, or if I was qualified enough, or if I accomplished the right thing. I think that's very common, honestly. But that's okay. So you can have doubts, but you know what? At the end of the day, I have doubts actually when I come up and I talk in a group like this, but I have to remind myself that there's only a couple people have gone to space, and my opportunity here is to provide that insight to as many people as I can. That makes me a little bit stronger. So every time I'm faced with some type of little adversity, I just have to think to myself, like, I know the systems, I've passed the test, I can operate this, I can do a spacewalk, I've practiced so much, I'm just as good as that other guy, comparing myself as you're gaining more knowledge, that it's okay, be confident now because you can do these things. But I think that's usual. Everybody has to sort of have this little conversation inside their head as they take a next step that might be something that is a little daring. You might do well, you might not do well, it's okay. And I also would say to people just trying to figure out what you want to be, because I didn't know what I wanted to be. I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. I love animals, could possibly still do it, but I took those steps because I was like, okay, just try it, we'll see how it works out. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. We have a lifetime to live. live it to the fullest, try as much as you can. You'll find eventually the thing that you love. I love flying helicopters, and you'll do well.
On the same note, this is a slightly specific question. Were you ever bullied growing up? Was that ever part of your experience?
Was I ever bullied? Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't even think we knew the word bully back when I'm a little older than most here, but I don't even think we knew that word bullying, but I understand what you're saying. Did people sort of make fun of you, look at you in a funny way? I don't know if it was bullied or maybe just sort of given sometimes the silent treatment because you're a different person in some type of job or whatever, and you're just trying to make your way through that, and you're wondering why, like, why doesn't everybody love me? You know, like, why doesn't everybody love me? I'm a nice person, and that might seem true for most, but it's some of that is also, I just have to suggest, some of that is also in your head. You know, if somebody is treating you poorly, that's their problem. That's not your problem. I think all you can do is be the bigger person and just get on with it. Get on with your life. You're the only thing that you can control. Get on with your life and your job and just do the best that you can do.
When you become an astronaut, obviously from the get-go, there's intense levels of training. It's very grueling. It's a very demanding career, obviously. And you've been in this business for decades now. I'm curious what kind of toll that takes on your family, because I'm assuming that limits the time you get to spend with your parents, your siblings, your husband, even your dogs.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a challenge, right? Does that ever really take a toll on you? Is the mission so important that, you know, you sort of figure out that it's worth that investment and you're able to balance family and bring them on board as well?
I think this is a time that you have a little bit of doubt, right? Because you see that it's like you're striving for a goal that's much bigger than yourself. You know, going back to my Navy days, these things are bigger than yourselves. You might be deployed and it might be extended. You're planning on having Christmas with your family. You're planning on having a birthday with your parents who are getting older, and you're going to miss all of that. And you understand, they understand, everybody has to be having that conversation beforehand, like, is it worth it? What you're doing, is it worth it? And I actually, before my first flight, because I knew I was going to go away, I knew it was going to be stressful for my parents to watch me in a rocket to leave the planet. It's pretty cool, but it's also very stressful. So I actually had an opportunity to go and visit with, like, my family, my friends, all around the United States where I live, and visit with them and talk with them and tell them what I was doing and what their part of it was, and their part of it was to hopefully help, love, and support me. And I am so blessed on this last flight, when I was extended, they were like, we love you, just come home safe and have a great time up there. I mean, that support from your family members will allow you to do amazing things.
Was there anyone who said, don't do it? I'm just curious. It's a naughty question. But did anyone say, don't do it?
Did anyone say, don't do it? I think there's definitely some friends of mine that I've known since I was a little kid, and they were like, are you sure you want to do that? That looks really scary. And actually, an impression my sister had, I don't think she really had a whole idea of what it was like for a rocket to launch. When she was watching the launch, I asked her afterwards, through a phone call from the space station, I said, what were your impressions? Because it's really great to get somebody's initial impression. She's like, oh my God, Sunny, there was a lot of fire. I'm so scared. I was so scared. But, you know, once she understood more about the spacecraft, and I think that was my opportunity to not tell her more about it, not tell my parents more about it. So that was my bad. That's the request I ask of you. If you're going to do something like this, make sure everybody around you is well aware of what you're getting into and why you're doing it. And then I think the joy will just come from there.
Considering that you've been in space several times now, obviously I'm assuming the first time is very exciting and you've got nerves and you're sort of maybe scared. But after a point of time when you've got multiple times, is it just easy peasy after a while? Do you think that, okay, I've been here, been there, done that? Does that happen?
Never. Every time. First time absolutely leaves an impression. I think the biggest impression that I had was, like, I didn't think it was going to happen. You know, we walked out to the launch pad on my first flight, and we all got strapped in. The countdown's going. We were down to, like, seconds before we were supposed to launch, and we stopped the launch. And we all got out and went back and got rested and had dinner. And it sort of felt like one of my simulations that we had done numbers of times, because you end the simulation, you go home and you have dinner. And I was sort of like, I don't know if this is ever really going to happen. So the first flight, I think the biggest impression was like, oh my God, as the countdown continues, like, we're going, oh my God, we're all going to go. Like, we're blasting off, we're leaving the planet. And everywhere, us as rookies were all like screaming like it was like the best amusement ride that you ever had. And we were just like, cheering and excited. So my next two flights, I knew it was going to happen. Eventually, we had a couple, the second flight, it went right on time. And by my last flight, if you were following, we had a number of starts before we actually flew. I knew it was going to happen. We had little difficulties here and there. I knew people would, now I'm in a different mindset. I knew it was going to happen because I knew the people who are working on the spacecraft were going to get it right and nobody else was going to be hindering our launch. So I was fully anticipating, like, we're going to go. And I had a job this. On my first flight, I was sort of a cargo. They were dropping me off on the space station. But this third time, I was the pilot on a brand new spacecraft. So we had a lot of responsibilities, both me and Butch. And we were taking our job heads down, looking at the displays, very serious, very concentrated. But at the same time, we were the first to launch on an Atlas V. And so something would, as the countdown would go, some noise would happen, some valve would go, like boom. And we'd look at each other, we're like, okay, write that down. That's something new. I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know that was going to happen. But all these things were in the normal countdown, but nobody had been there to tell us what it was going to sound like, what it was going to feel like. And again, when we launched on this ride, even though I had so much responsibility, I mean, there was so much joy, like, oh my God, we're going, and felt just like the first one all over again.
But because all these sounds are unfamiliar, nobody's given you a tutorial on it. Fear must have played a factor, especially because there have also been tragedies in the past. You knew Kalpana Chawla, I think. Kalpana Chawla. And I think you just met her family in Delhi when you were here. Do tragedies like that bring some kind of pause or reserve? How do they affect somebody training for the next flight?
You know, I actually think these are really great learning experiences. Yes, we lost our friends on the Columbia accident. Yes, that was a tragedy. But we learned so much from that I think us flying the space shuttle was more safe after that tragedy because we learned about things to look at. Same with my flight. You know, it's the same thing. We learned so much technically, not only technically, but also like programmatically, how to do things better. So, you know, I think there was a quote in one of the calendars that I got from India about challenges, and scientists were in this calendar. And an expert in one of the quotes, and I can't remember who it is, and shame on me, but the quote was, an expert is someone who has exhausted all of the mistakes. So I don't think we're ever going to be, I'll never become an expert because I think we'll still continue on to have mistakes. And that's because we're gaining knowledge. Maybe it's something we just don't know. If we're exploring, if we're taking the next step, of course we're going to make a mistake. And that's okay if we come back and learn from it so that people behind us are much safer and much better off.
And there's something in what you said that also links up to just being people, right? That you don't always have to get it perfectly right. It's always okay to, I think in your earlier session today, you said
it's
that...
sometime.
Hello? In your earlier sessions today, you said that instead of A+, it's okay to be A-, and that you can actually learn from that. There's something for us as human beings also to pick up from this approach to life.
Yeah, I totally believe that, and particularly when you're living in a long duration mission and there's some time, when something has to be done and there's no time and you have to immediately react. Of course, being an A+ person, because you get everything right, you can memorize everything, you can logically go through it quickly. Being an A+ is good. But if you have some time, which generally, if we really look at most problems that we have a little time. And if we have time, being an A- person, I think is much better because you actually can stop, think through the problem, think about the consequences of the people that are also involved with you and with the problem, and consider all of that. And sometimes not have the very optimum solution, but have a 98% solution, and that makes everybody feel a little bit better about solving the problem, and it's fine. 98 or 100% for all the parents out there, it's the same thing, for Pete's sake.
But that also means being prepared to live with a degree of risk, right? Because in your business, 98 versus 100 could be the difference between life and death. So are you always also aware of that risk that you're carrying each time you make these decisions?
This is a great question because a lot of people say, oh, you're a daredevil. Even as we were driving over here today, someone said, oh, I forgot you're an adrenaline junkie. I'm not necessarily an adrenaline junkie. I'm not necessarily a risk taker. I'm a calculated risk taker. So when you're gonna adventure and do something, and you know that there's a lot of people relying on your activity and how you do that, because more people are gonna do the same thing after you, like more people are gonna fly Starliner. I want to know everything I can about taking that risk. I don't want to just willy-nilly go in and take a risk and then have something bad happen. That is particularly true when we're doing spacewalks. Generally, we practice everything beforehand in a big pool called the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, so we have a pretty good idea of what everything's going to happen, but there's always things that are a little bit different. You know, there's sun on the space station, so that might cause metal to change, right? It might cause expansion or contraction. So things may not work exactly like you planned it, and that's okay. You've calculated the risk. You maybe wait a little bit longer, maybe take your time a little bit, so you might miss a task at the very end, but that's okay. You want to make sure you do everything in a risk balance so that the next group of people can continue on from where you left off.
Since you mentioned all these calculations and stuff, I really have to ask, were you very good at math in school?
I love math. I'm a little bit of a math dork. I don't like math when it starts being letters. I like math when it's numbers. But and anybody out there who doesn't like differential equations, I did not like differential equations. But they're important. And I didn't realize that because I didn't put 2 and 2 together when I started getting to that point in math. Like, why are we doing this? You know, why am I torturing myself with this type of math? But when I went to test pilot school, we actually had to not use a computer and write out all of those differential equations to look at when you change a variable, what happens. And then it really dawned on me, oh my gosh, this is super important to math model systems. And not only like mechanical systems, I'm talking like a helicopter or an airplane, but also math modeling processes, math modeling, you know, the number of people that are here in the room attending the conference today. Math modeling everything that we do in life is really valuable, and it's really important and allows us to make informed decisions. So differential equations, if you don't like them yet, learn to like them. They're good. They're good for you.
Sunita, you said about the math thing that, why are we doing this? With space as well, if someone asked you, why are we actually exploring space? Because we're sitting in India, right? In India, this is often a question that comes up. Every time we have a space mission, there's often this question saying, why does a poor country need to invest money in space? And that's a question that some feel is legitimate, although of course it's not a simple or a simplistic answer that you can give for it. But why does space matter at a very elementary level?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question. This is very important. I think I touched on it in one of my talks earlier, but I think exploring space gives us a unique opportunity to, one, work together, because we're leaving the planet as people, as human beings, right? So it gives us an opportunity, an open door to have international relations and share knowledge between countries or systems or agencies. And I think that's really important. It also allows competition now that we have commercialism of space. It allows different companies, and that commercialism, what it means to me is competition. And competition is good at some points. Fair competition is really good. Trying to be better, trying to take the next step. SpaceX, for example, is a great company because they've sort of mixed up the space industry and made other space companies better. But really, the more important reason why space exploration is important, because it makes us think outside the box. All of a sudden, we don't have gravity, so we have to do things different from the way we do things on Earth. Everything that we know here on Earth, I mean, even the way our bodies are shaped or formed, is all because of gravity. And so if you take gravity away, and we might see that in the video if we play the video, if you take gravity away, all these other processes take over, or principles or physics takes over. And you have to design systems and equipment differently to be able to handle that. And that allows us to actually be a little bit more creative. So I think, in the big scope of things, if we talk rich, poor, whatever, with money will always be a problem. We'll never have enough money. We'll never have enough money, even in the space programs, to think about doing the things we want to do. But that's not necessarily true in my mind. I think without the money, then you have to even think a little bit more creatively. And so this just spurs on the creativity, the imagination, the innovation that human beings are capable of, but we sort of suppress it a little by doing the same thing every single time.
We're sitting in Kozhikode, and this is a place where 500 years ago, Vasco da Gama came and landed, and he discovered, in quotes, the maritime route to India. Now, 500 years ago, the great adventure, the great perilous adventure was people getting on ships and going to other continents, finding cultures they'd never encountered before, etc. Is it really in the realm of sci-fi to imagine that maybe in our lifetimes or the next generation's lifetimes, we will actually get to a point where space exploration becomes about going to other planets and it becomes far more routine than it is now? Do you think in your lifetime this will become a more familiar
it's a big ask. It's a big understanding to be able to do that. Part of it is getting from one place to the other. So we have, I wouldn't say perfect, but we have now repetitively gone to low Earth orbit, which is around our planet. And I don't know if everybody knows, it only takes about 10 minutes to get to low Earth orbit where we operate the International Space Station. That's not very far. That's not very long. It's just up to space, and then we do some burns to get circularized or stay in orbit. But if we're going to go farther away, going back to the moon, going on to Mars, so we're about, say, I'm going to talk in miles, English units, sorry, 250 miles above the Earth. The moon is about 250,000 miles from Earth, and Mars is about 250 million miles from Earth. So that's orders of magnitude farther and farther away. And we're going to have propulsion systems that are going to get us there a little bit quicker if we're going to continue to explore. But that's going on. That's underway. But that's going to be a big ask to be able to do that. We want to be less than 6 months to get people to go to Mars. They'll be there for a year or so, and then 6 months to come back. That's going to be a long time. My dogs will miss me if I do that.
But it's quite remarkable that all this work you do, all the prep you do, and then in 10 minutes you're essentially at your destination. It's quite amazing. The first time you went out into space, I'm curious to ask what you took from home. Were you allowed to take, pictures of family? Were you allowed to take, pickle? What did you take with you the first time you went out into space?
So the first time I went to space, I think a lot of people know, I took things that represent my parents, my family, my culture. So I took things from India, I took things from Slovenia. Of course, I took things from America. My husband sent me up a book about my dog, because not about my dog, but how to deal with my dog, because my dog was a little troublesome. So a little dog training, so I would do a little homework while I was up there. But of course, from the Indian culture, I brought samosas with me, food, of course. My father, as I was leaving, gave me a Bhagavad Gita, small one, because he knew that I wanted to spend time doing space things rather than reading. So I could just, open my mind to some thoughts from the Bhagavad Gita while I was up there. From my mother's culture, I brought, they have specifically dried sausage, which my crewmates all wanted to have, as well as the samosas. And also they make lace in Slovenia. So a couple little symbols of each culture, each country that made me who I am and I could take all these people with me to space.
On the samosa that you took, I've read somewhere that when they were restocking your food supplies in your first mission maybe, you asked for more spicy food because this food wasn't to your liking. Is that true?
Well, the food is pretty bland, and we try to actually don't put as much salt on our food, because salt contributes to bone density loss, is something we have to be worried about while we're up in space. So the taste is sort of blah. So obviously, if you don't have salt, you want to have some other spices that will spice it up. And so we did have some soy sauce. We got some wasabi sauce while we were up there. But some of this, I was having some, dosa, and I had, coconut chutney. That would have been awesome, but we didn't have any of that while we were up there. So maybe if I have any recommendations for the Indian Space Agency, make sure they put some of that good stuff in our food.
I listened to a snippet where you were on a podcast on this trip, Raj Shamani's podcast, and there's this thing where he asks you about smells in space, and you end up having a conversation about flatulence and farting, and how there's a problem with farting because you're essentially stuck in this giant metal tube, and this is a very real issue.
Oh yeah, so it's nice that there's a breeze coming through here, right? it's saving all of us, but you know, when you're stuck and it's all closed in space, yes, this does happen. And for some reason, I'm not sure if it's the space food or what the situation, maybe the preservatives in the food, but some people can't handle it. And boy, it's pretty bad. When you're flying through the spacecraft, sometimes we do have some ventilation, so a little bit of a breeze, but for a moment, the smell sort of lingers, and it's a cloud that you can fly right through. It's like, it's terrible. And it was on this last flight, just a funny scenario. I was having somebody do some eye investigation. So they were looking at my eyes, and I was sort of stuck in the corner holding myself still, and I had my eyes open, and they were measuring the pressure, like if anybody has had pressure on their eye measured. So I was stuck and I couldn't move. And the person who was doing the exam kept farting. And so I'm sitting there, I'm trying to hold my eyes open, but they're watering as I'm getting my exam done. I don't know if the pressure was right, actually.
No, it's quite fascinating because if you watch movies about space, it's also glamorous and romantic, and it's all about the effort and the challenges and all of that. You don't quite think of astronauts as having problems with flatulence. Were you relieved when you came back from that first trip to have access to a regular toilet again?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was mentioning earlier today, if you think about it, when you actually go to the loo, everybody, right, you either sit down or stand there, and gravity takes over and does everything for you. In space, that's not going to happen, and so we have assistance with a little bit of a vacuum, but it's a little bit uncomfortable. You have to make sure you're aimed properly to the right place. Otherwise, this stuff can come back and haunt you, I guess. I have a little bit of a movie that was a little bit of what I call it my vacation from Earth. If everybody would like to see that, we could cue it up and I could talk to it. So I'm going to stand up a little bit and get out of the way, because I'll talk to it. I just wanted to say this is a great time in human exploration of space. We have 3 different spacecraft that we're flying to space, the Starliner, the Soyuz, and now the Dragon. And 3 different rockets you can see that they're on. So 3 different spacecraft, 3 different rockets, 3 different ways to go to space, 3 different space suits. So it's a lot is going on nowadays. So before we launch, we're in quarantine. Butch and I were getting ready, as well as Don and Alexei getting ready for their Soyuz flight. And then Nick and Alex were also getting ready. So now you've seen 3 different spacesuits. And so we all are either in Florida or in Baikonur in Kazakhstan. We get ready to launch. We walk out and we say goodbye to our family and friends and all of the people who have made this journey possible. And so last time we'll be walking, so it's it's a little surreal moment. After that, we get into our spacecraft, and we're there for a couple hours as we're preparing the rocket for launch as well as the spacecraft. Launching it in order, we launched in June in 2024. The Soyuz launched in September of 24, and the Dragon on the right-hand side launched in October of 2024. So you'll see there's a lot of people up there, not just Butch and myself, but we had all sorts of people up there coming on different spacecraft. 3 different technologies, and that doesn't mean just the hardware, but also the software. How these spacecraft and rockets were going to get to space. Yes, about 10 minutes for everybody to get to the point we're in space, and then the rocket and the spacecraft disconnect. It's called staging right there. And then the spacecraft continue on. For Butch and I, it took us about 25 hours before we were docked to the space station. For the Soyuz, it was only about 6 hours. And for Dragon, it was another like 25 hours. Also, you can see the software of the inside on the cockpits with the displays. You can see the Russian language on the Soyuz spacecraft. And then on the American spacecraft, you can see this modernization of the displays as we were operating and coming in and getting ready to dock to the space station here on the right side of the screen for the Dragon. And when you dock to the space station, it's a great day. For most of us, you have pretty good hair when you're up there. It was just a wonderful day to actually be there, be reunited with friends that were waiting for us to get ready to do a bunch of science experiments and be ready to work on the International Space Station. So you can already see there's 9 of us at this time. And then Don arrived, Don, Alexei, and Ivan, to make it 12 people. There are a lot of traditions in this business as well, and they cross cultures. So not only American, but Russian, but Japanese, European and Canadians, Indians more recently. Whenever a spacecraft arrives bringing these people, we ring the bell to announce that their spacecraft has arrived. So you can see there was a lot of people up there at one point in time. We ate a lot of food. We used the toilet quite a bit. We'll get back to that in a little while. And then finally, Nick and Alex arrived, and notice that there's only 2, because this is a team sport. 2 more people were supposed to be on that spacecraft, but graciously stepped down so that that spacecraft would provide seats for Butch and I to come home. So at this point in time, we had, I think, 11 people on the space station, because 3 had left. So we had quite a few people that we were hanging out with. And this is our home, away from home, that took over 10 years to build, but is working. And maybe we can turn the volume up a little bit of the video to learn about what we do in space.
Collecting data, we're constantly trying to answer questions, and usually that leads to more questions. The focus of the question, though, is what happens when you take gravity away? Because it's such a strong force, it masks lots of the nuances in different things that behave around us, and understanding those nuances helps us understand more about ourselves as well as the universe and how we interact with it. So we look at medicines, we look at materials and making new materials, we look at how we behave so that we know how medicines might interact with us or how to counteract diseases. You name it, we're doing research on it up here.
We've had opportunities to do all sorts of science, spacewalks. It's varied and pretty awesome, actually, opportunity to do something different every single day.
You can see Butch will work with the different canisters to collect those microorganism swabs.
The science of opportunity happens anywhere there are people thinking about advancing our knowledge, and the same thing happens on space station.
We have companies, universities, students all flying these astrobees around at different times. Some of them are actually even grabbing onto other pieces that we might have floating around, and that might help us clean up space debris. We have a tray right here that does some combustion experiments. Right on the other side of Butch is a glove box where we've done some stem cell research as well as DNA sequencing. And there's an airlock where it can take payloads out of the space station, and those could be Earth observation satellites. They could be launchers of other microsatellites. They could be doing all sorts of amazing stuff.
The mission of the space station, the scientific exploration, is something that we deeply believe in, and its ability to make a positive impact for all of humanity.
And the next part, we also had not only inside we were working, but we were working outside of the space station. So we had 3 spacewalks while we were there. We had a Russian spacewalk. If you can see, take a note of what the suit looks like. It's a little beige color, so it's distinct from the US spacesuit, which is white, but there's more than that. The Russians have designed a really cool suit that you open the back of it, you jump in, and you close the door behind you. All the parts can be easily taken out and replaced. This is a lot different from the US spacesuit. As you see right here, this white one takes a little more than that to get in it. Our friends had to help us get into it, had to help us get ready for the spacewalks. Then Nick and I went out and did a repair. One of the gyros, rate gyros, that we have 2 of them on the space station, wasn't acting right, so we had to go out and replace that. It's a big box, sort of like the size of this white box right here. You can see as we get closer to the work site here, the tools that we're using and the big gloves that we're using. So we have to have tools that we can use with not much dexterity to be able to do the tasks that we're doing. Nick then worked on a nicer experiment, which is an X-ray telescope, like the alpha magnetic spectrometer that looks out into the universe and also looking to see how stars and other things in our solar system. That one was not working quite right, so we had patches. Nick installed a patch on it so it would work a little bit better. This is me at the front of the space station as we were getting ready to replace a reflector to help other future spacecraft come up and dock to the space station. And then on our 3rd spacewalk, Butch and I had the opportunity to go outside. On that one, you had a little hint of it. Butch actually swabbed the outside of the space station, and we found that actually microorganisms can live in the vacuum of space. Yes, they're probably as a result of us being inside the space station and us venting gas overboard, but the fact of the matter is things can live out there. They don't automatically die in the vacuum of space, which is pretty neat when you think about us exploring further on. And then Nick and Don actually flew me around on the robotic arm, the Canadian robotic arm, to disconnect a bigger box, probably the size of the middle of the table here, that we needed. It was a radio frequency group to allow us to have communications. You know, the space station is now 25 years old, and some of these parts are a little obsolete, so we have to fix them all ourselves and reinstall them back. And I don't know if you see the crowbar here. Sometimes, even though this seems very complicated, the simplest solutions help solve the problem. The crowbar helped us get the box off. But you know, also, we're very busy while we're up there, but we're having fun. Just a little bit of a look at what the space station looks like with the tour, flying through the space station to our kitchen, to our amazing window called the cupola, to a laboratory, and then to one of the spacecraft there, the Dragon, to see what it looks like inside, take a little quick peek out the window, and take a look at our planet. We are working not only outside for fixing stuff, but also inside. Butch and I are replacing a pump to use in the bathroom. Here is the toilet that we talked about. We have 3 of them up there, which is good, so if one breaks, we can actually use another. But we have to fix the toilet because we eat a lot of food. This was after a resupply mission, and it was such a great day when you have fresh fruits and vegetables, you have to share them with your friends. And since we eat a lot, and I talked about health already, we work out a lot. So we have this machine called the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device, where we can lift weight up to 600 pounds, about 300 kilos, to do the loading that we don't have with gravity on our hips and our feet, so our bone density remains and our muscle mass. We also use the treadmill, of course, for that same thing, as well as cardiovascular health, which we can also do on a bicycle that has no seat, because you don't need a seat, obviously. Of course, we have a normal day, so we sleep in space. We use a sleeping bag, because you can't put covers on top of you. They would just float away. Yes, your hair grows. I didn't let those guys touch my hair while I was up there. They cut their own hair, but not my hair. We have a couple other spacecraft that came up without people in them, uncrewed spacecraft, which I call Uber Eats. They bring food, they bring experiments, and they bring some toys. 800 pounds of tungsten, which we're going to install for a future exercise device. It's fun to note when our spacecraft is descending, so we do a reboost sometime, and then when we're reboosting, we play around a little bit to see how we'll react. Theory of relativity, if you're familiar. And also, it's just fun to see what water does in space. Water is amazing. Water is life. We need water for everything. We use water, we split it for hydrogen and oxygen. That's how we breathe. We use water in every system that we have. So we have to figure out how water works. Oh yes, and we play around a little, make your own playground. And then some holidays happened while we were up there because it was a little bit longer. We make our makeshift, make your own costumes. And then we got another, what I call Uber Eats, with a Russian uncrewed spacecraft that came up that Alexei and Ivan could actually control and fly into dock from the space station. Really unique capability. They brought us food for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Let me see. We've got Brussels sprouts, butternut squash, apples and spice,
Smoked turkey.
and smoked turkey. It's going to be delicious.
So from all of us to all of you, Merry Christmas. Yep, I made them all decorate cookies. We also had Russian Christmas the next week. And you know, time is going by while we're up there, so we're all getting a little bit older.
Happy birthday, dear Butch. Happy birthday to you.
So living, working, going outside, there's a lot going on, but sometimes you just have to look out the window.
Anytime you look out the window, it's pretty amazing. The aurora borealis, the aurora australis, just to see the variety of the Earth from above, it's just thrilling.
One of the side benefits of staying a little longer is we got to see some incredible views. The summer of 24 and the summer of 25, aurora really came down low and we actually flew right through it. On the right side of the screen, you see a bunch of little dots. Those are Starlink satellites. I don't know if anybody has Starlink communication, but allowing a lot of people to have communications, but space is very busy right now. Don was able to take some incredible pictures of the Milky Way. This is a little bit hard to do, but he figured it out. We have some amazing cameras, and with those amazing cameras, we caught hurricanes on the bottom left. We caught lightning on the far right here. And we were able to actually see blue jets and red sprites coming out of the clouds when lightning was hitting the ground. It's pretty amazing. Okay, that's your planet and it's round. Unfortunately, all good things have to come to an end, and we had to come home. So you remember in the very beginning, I talked about 3 different spacecraft going to space, 3 rockets, 3 spacesuits. Now 3 different ways to get home. Yes, we did not ride Starliner on the way home. We actually undocked Starliner, and we had to say goodbye to it. But its technology is really cool. Nick and me and Alex and Butch got in our Dragon spacecraft and headed home. Don, Alexei, and Alex got in their, Ivan got in their Soyuz spacecraft and went home. And Starliner, we sent home without anybody in it. Most of the systems are automated, which is pretty cool. As you're barreling in our atmosphere, of course, you're going through the atmosphere and you're going through the plasma.
And there we go. We have visual on 4 healthy mains. And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
I think we'll just continue. I just wanted to talk about the 3 different ways to get home. So we're barreling in the atmosphere and there's plasma all around our spacecraft. So the heat shield systems around our spacecraft have to be very awesome, as well as the windows. This is Starliner coming in. It has 2 drogue chutes, which pull out 3 parachutes. It drops the heat shield, and underneath the heat shield are airbags. This spacecraft lands on land, so it needs a little extra cushioning before it lands. And so you'll see the airbags just inflated, and it lands on land like a marshmallow, like a pillow. And this was Starliner came back in the fall of 2024. This is where Butch and I came home in the Dragon capsule. You can see it, after it slowed down through the plasma, it slows down just enough to let out 2 drogue chutes and then 4 parachutes. Dragon is a bigger, heavier spacecraft, and it lands in the water. Soyuz, on the other hand, is a little smaller spacecraft and has 1 big parachute. So that's our Dragon spacecraft landing in the water. And a sign of being home, of course, I think I've mentioned before, all the people I know, all the animals I know, all the plants I know are here on Earth. We didn't have dolphins in space, but we got some dolphins to welcome us home on our spacecraft, which was pretty special. It's a sure sign that we're on Earth, which was awesome. You can see them in the left-hand side of the screen right here. Don wanted, of course, dolphins or some animals. He was landing in the desert in Kazakhstan. I think camels are a little bit more appropriate for his soft landing entry there in Kazakhstan. And then the ride isn't over, though, till it's really over. I think probably a lot of people saw us getting pulled out of the spacecraft on the ship or in the desert. We get on a helicopter because we're a little far away from a place where we can get home, or a runway. So we get the helicopter to where there's an airplane, and then we get on the airplane and fly us back home to our families and friends. And I just wanted to share my little vacation of Earth. I hope all of you can eventually have that one day, and that is why we're working so hard on space exploration.
Sunita, that generated goosebumps. It was also moving. When I was looking at the visuals of the Earth, I almost had tears in my eyes. Just absolutely stunning. I mean, it's striking me now that I'm sitting next to somebody who actually went and did all this over there. I have 100 questions, including, for instance, I saw the exercising bits in the video and I was like, what happens to your sweat? Does it like fly up into the air when you sweat?
Your sweat.
Does it sort of...
Sweat just puddles around like I am right here. It would all be all over me, and it doesn't go away with wind. We don't have convective cooling, so it just sort of sits on you, so you get pretty wet.
Bizarre. With the International Space Station, you mentioned that it's going to go into retirement very soon. I think about 5 years or so they're going to retire it. What does the next 20 years look like? Because I haven't heard of a new space station being created. So what's going to replace it? What's going to happen next?
So it's, like I said, it's a super exciting time. We're getting ready to turn the page, next chapter in space exploration, going back to the moon sustainably. In the next couple months, we're going to launch Artemis 2 with four astronauts. They're not going to land on the moon, but they're going to go around the moon in a much different trajectory than we did in Apollo, to start looking at other places to land, like on the poles where there might be in situ resources. So this is coming up. And all of that foundational work, all that foundational science on processes and how things work is adding to that and allowing us to even imagine being on the moon for a long period of time. Now, it doesn't stop there either. Now that we have commercial companies interested all over the world, we're looking at commercial low Earth orbit stations being developed so that we can actually produce some of the things that we just tested out while we're on the International Space Station. So hoping this will all leapfrog into a new economy which allows more and more people to actually have that view with their own two eyes.
Does that mean that in retirement, Sunita Williams will still be involved in some capacity in this world of space?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. That's up to see. But I'm having the opportunity to go to Trivandrum tomorrow and meet folks there on the 27th. And see what's going on. I'm really excited. I'm always just a phone call away, happy to help people talk and think about space.
You know, you've seen all of these things. You're one of the few people in the world that's quite literally seen the world. At some level, when you come back, does it annoy you that we're all in our mundane lives still caught up with politics and race and identity and all of these it would seem petty, right? Given where you were, you get a sense of proportion about what the universe is. And here we are with our little lives and our little worlds. Does that ever...
I don't think it gets annoying. I think this is why I'm here talking to you, sharing my story. I think our stories as astronauts, we are very fortunate to be able to have this view, this perspective about how we are all one on this planet, same water, same air that we all breathe, and we are all humanity. And I think sharing that perspective will make everybody think about that on a regular basis. Of course, I do get aggravated when my coffee's a little bit late in the morning, but I think that's just because we get aggravated when we don't get our coffee on time.
Curious, when I was looking at the video, it was all happy, and you were playing games, and there were parties. Did you guys fight?
Of course, we are like a family up there, and I think every family sticks together, but every now and then has a little disputes. And I think one of the big things that we've learned in our training and doing something that's bigger than yourself is actually stopping and listening and having a conversation and trying to find the most optimum solution. It was very true on this last flight because unexpectedly, all of us had flown before except for this poor little one guy, Alex. And when you fly with a rookie, a first-time flyer, it's easy to mold them. But when you fly with people who have flown 2 or 3 times, they already have an opinion. I think like everybody here, right? Everyone has an opinion. We should do it my way. We should do it my way. And I think having stopping and listening to each other, having the conversation, and trying to find the optimum solution, and also being A-, giving in and just going, okay, fine, we'll do it your way, I think actually works out really well.
You've done a bunch of talks so far, including at KLF, and I'm assuming you've been asked a lot of these questions repetitively. Is there a question nobody's ever asked you yet, but you really want to give an answer to? Is there something you really want to put out there that nobody's pointedly asked you about? What was your biggest learning from space? Like, what was something that truly, at the end of this, when you're sitting down and maybe thinking back about your career, nearly 3 decades in space, etc., in doing what you do, what is that one thing you want people here to go back with? Something you want to teach them or give them as a lesson or just a thought or an idea?
Right. I mean, I think I talk a lot, so I apologize for that, keeping everybody here in the heat a little bit. But I think my biggest lesson learned, I think that's probably the most important thing, is not the technical stuff that I learned in space, but when I came back here to Earth, I think there was a lot of news about our journey. Our journey was not entirely unique. There was also other journeys, other astronauts who had been up in space for a long period of time. But what I found, because of the news press about our flight, everybody, didn't matter who they were, what their ethnicity, what country they're from, what color of their skin. Anybody that I encountered would say to me, thank God you're back. I'm so happy you're back. It's so great to have you and Butch back on Earth. And the biggest lesson that I learned from that is, deep in our hearts, if we get rid of all that noise, all that distraction, all this petty arguments that you mentioned, human beings are good. Human beings are nice, and we all care about each other. So don't forget that when you go out on your daily life, even when you disagree with somebody, we're all still human beings, and we all care about each other.
Given the way Sunita is speaking, I have a feeling there's a book in Sunita. Who wants to see a book by Sunita Williams? When you were in space, were there books you read? Because you were stranded there for quite a while, 200 and something days. Were there books that you read?
Yeah, we have books up there. We have a smaller library than we used to have 10 years ago when I flew my second flight, because everything now is becoming digital. So we have a lot of digital books as well. And so that's really fun, as well as podcasts that we can listen to, or books on tape that we can actually listen to when we're doing exercise. So every time I was on the exercise equipment, I tried to listen to something so I would learn about it. I don't really know about EE electric stuff, so maybe I needed to do a little bit more of V equals IR, I don't know.
Now, speaking of books, we've got Group Captain Prashant Nair, who's got a book for you. Group Captain.
Joining us, Prashant Nair. He is among the 4 astronauts selected for ISRO Gaganyaan mission, India's first human spaceflight program.
Namaskaram, Kozhikode. ഒരു മലയാളിക്കും സ്പേസിൽ പോകണ്ടേ? ഒരു ചായക്കട തുടങ്ങണ്ടേ നമുക്കും ചന്ദ്രനിൽ? I just told them that it's time. There's a famous joke going on here that whenever USA lands in Moon again or Mars, they'll find a Malayali already there running a tea shop. So I'm saying it's time for us to go there. So this is my home state, Sunita. And thank you, fantastic. I spent last year in Johnson Space Center, and I know this entire journey, me and my colleague, and with your colleague Peggy, a fantastic commander again. Thank you for the entire training that we received there, and I know the kind of legacy that all of you leave for us. Only one thing which I can tell for all of you out there, that what Mission Gaganyaan is, because I realize most of you do not know it. Mission Gaganyaan is that 2027, India will launch an Indian astronaut from an Indian rocket in an Indian spaceship from an Indian spaceport. And we will only be the 4th country in the world after erstwhile USSR, now Russia, USA and China to do it. So if you go from USA, you're a astronaut. If you go from Russia, you're a cosmonaut. If you go from China, you're a taikonaut. And from India, we might be named by the Prime Minister as a Gaganyatri, Gagannaut, or maybe from Kerala, right? So coconut, you never know. So you all should know it. And it's very important that our country realizes its potential. And I'm so happy that we are in this blessed land of Kerala. The energy here is really electric. And on behalf of all of you, I would like to present, as your ambassador, a token of the human spaceflight insignia of ISRO to our great hero, Sunita Williams, who's our own. Sunita, this for you. This is the logo of the Human Spaceflight Program of India. And that's for you. Thank you.
നമുക്കറിയാം പ്രശാന്ത് നായരുടെ വേറൊരു ഡെസിഗ്നേഷൻ കൂടിയുണ്ട്. എല്ലാവരുടെയും ഫേവറേറ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള പോപ്പുലർ ആക്ടർ ലെനയുടെ ഹസ്ബൻഡ് ആണ്. സോ ഈ ഒരു ഓട്ടോബയോഗ്രഫിയും കൂടി കൊണ്ടുവന്നിട്ടുണ്ട് അദ്ദേഹം.
My wife has written this fantastic book and she has gifted this to you. It's the autobiography of God. So she's well known in the state because she's also an actress and she's an authoress. So on behalf of their love for her, I would like to present this to you. Thank you everyone, and let's cheer for space, because space, like what Sunita showed you, when you go up there, you realize when you look up down from there, we are not the astronauts. The real astronauts are in a spaceship called Earth traveling at 31 kilometers per second. That's all of you. So cheer for you all astronauts. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What a great crowd. Thank you so much for inviting me here to Kerala. I love Kerala. I'll be back. I'm forgetting the name of the ice cream. What's the ice cream? I think we all need
Faluda?
We all need some Faluda.
Yeah,
Faluda.
audience said it's kulfi or faluda.
Ma'am, what is that one thing you love about Kozhikode, Kerala?
Faluda. No, honestly, it is genuinely the people, how wonderful, how nice, how welcoming, how well you take care of each other. I think that is a big key. Everyone seems to live here very peacefully and in harmony, and it typifies what we see from space, that people from all different ethnicities can live together very happily and be super productive. Love you guys.
Thank you so much. ഇത് എല്ലാവരുടെയും ഹൃദയത്തിൽ കൊത്തിവെക്കപ്പെടുന്ന ഒരു മൊമെന്റ് ആയിട്ട് മാറും. Thank you so much everyone.